Yes, next let us have a look of 123rd question. Let us see this. Which of these is not an important component of initiation of parturition in the humans? Right, initiation of parturition. So that means the factors which initiate the delivery process in the females is known as initiation of the parturition. So generally this parturition process is neuroendocrine reflex. This is neuroendocrine reflex because the nervous system is going to involve this particular process, as well as endocrine system also going to involve in this parturition process. That's what this particular parturition process we call, it's a neuroendocrine reflex, right? Neuroendocrine reflex. So initially the placenta along with the embryo, they're going to initiate the parturition process. As a result, some mild contractions generally occur in the uterus walls. As a result, these mild contractions in the uterus, they are going to initiate the pituitary gland. As a result, more amount of oxytocin is going to be secreted from the pituitary gland. In turn, this particular oxytocin which is secreted by the pituitary gland, this particular oxytocin is going to act on the uteral wall, that is the myometrium, that is the mid layer of the uterus. So this myometrium is going to be contracted very stronger. So as a result, so baby is being pushed towards the birth canal. At the same time, again, more amount of oxytocin. If there are strong contractions occur in the uterus, more amount of oxytocin is going to be released from the posterior pituitary. So some more stronger contractions occur in uterus walls. So as a result, the delivery is going to be occurred, right? Let us see that. So initiation of parturition in the humans. Release of prolactin. Here if you observe this particular hormone, prolactin. So prolactin is not at all going to play any sort of role in the parturition process. Now absolutely we can say this is the wrong option. Increase in estrogen and progesterone ratio. So this is right one, but it is not being given in our textbook. And synthesis of prostaglandins. So this also initiates the parturition process, but it is also not given in our textbook. So when we are coming across the particular male and female reproductive system, we can come across these prostaglandins. So these prostaglandins, they help in the contraction of uterus. There we can come across, but it has not been given in our textbook. So this is also right option and this is also right option. And release of oxytocin, this only the option which is given in our textbook, right? So oxytocin, blindly we can say this is the right one. So we can say these three are right, and whereas the release of prolactin is the wrong answer, which is not at all related with the parturition process, right? So this was the question which was asked in 2021. And let us switch on to the next one. So which of these is not an important component of initiation of parturition in humans? So same question again, it was asked in 2015, but it was cancelled, right? Let us check the next one. The fetal ejection reflex, right? The fetal ejection reflex in humans triggers the release of oxytocin, release of oxytocin. Oxytocin from fetal pituitary, this is wrong one because the oxytocin is not going to be released from the fetal pituitary. So this oxytocin is going to release from the mother's pituitary gland, but not from the pituitary of the fetus, right? Human chorionic gonadotrophin from the placenta. So this is not going to play a vital role in the parturition process, because HCG is a hormone. H is the hormone which is released by the placenta, which accommodates the pregnancy, and it sees that the pregnancy should continue. So this is not the right one. And human placental lactogen from the placenta, oxytocin from the maternal pituitary. So this is the right option here, the oxytocin from maternal pituitary. So these are the both hormones, HCG and HPL, which are released by the placenta, which sees that the pregnancy should continue in a proper and healthy way. So that's what these two hormones are released from the placenta. So now, so if the more amount of HCG and HPL are present in the blood of the mother, so there is no initiation of this particular parturition process. Now oxytocin itself, it's going to initiate the parturition process, okay? And this was the question which was asked in 2013. And let us check the next one, that is signals for parturition originate from. So just now we discussed these signals are initiated by the placenta as well as the embryo. So these two structures, embryo as well as placenta, these are going to initiate the signals, initiate the parturition process. So after signals come, these two structures, that is placenta and embryo. So what happens? There are mild contractions occur generally in myometrium of the uterus. So as a result, so the oxytocin is going to be secreted from the posterior pituitary, and after releasing this oxytocin from the posterior pituitary, this oxytocin is going to act on the myometrium. So as a result, stronger contraction starts in the uterus, in the uteral wall. So ultimately, which leads to the delivery of the baby, right? So signals for parturition originate means here initially starting from both placenta as well as the fully developed fetus. Oxytocin released from maternal pituitary, placenta only, fully developed fetus only here. So both placenta as well as the fully developed fetus, this is very clearly given in your textbook. Okay, and then next, switch on to the next one. We'll switch. Signals from fully developed fetus and placenta ultimately lead to parturition, which requires the release of estrogen from placenta, oxytocin from maternal pituitary, oxytocin from fetal pituitary, relaxin from placenta. Actually, relaxin, it is not released from placenta. Relaxin is the hormone which is released from the corpus luteum, from the ovaries. This particular relaxin is the hormone which is useful for the freeing or else loosen the ligaments of the pelvic girdle, right? So this is the relaxin hormone. So leave it about that. So here signals from fully developed fetus and placenta ultimately lead to parturition, which requires the release of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary of the mother. So now the oxygen from maternal pituitary, this is the right option here. Now let us see the next one. Fetal ejection reflex in human females is induced by, again this was asked, fully developed fetus and placenta. This is the right answer. So again this was asked in 2009. So this particular topic is very little topic and so very easy one. So here we have to remember that a parturition process is a neuroendocrine reflex and how it is going to be happen. So we should know the particular process, and after that lactation and mammary glands maturation and the colostrum, we have to remember all these very few things we have to remember, right? Next one is this one is over. And 129, in human adult females, oxytocin stimulates pituitary to secrete vasopressin, causes strong uterine contraction during the parturition, is secreted by anterior pituitary, stimulates growth of mammary glands. Here we have to think, so only the oxytocin is the hormone which acts on the myometrium of the uterus. So in order to make very stronger contractions. So at the time of parturition process, here it causes this particular oxytocin which is secreted from posterior pituitary. See here, it is secreted by anterior pituitary. So in this statement we can observe this is the wrong word which is given here, anterior, but it is not secreted by the anterior pituitary. If it would be posterior, then it would be the correct answer, but it is anterior pituitary has been given here, so it is the wrong option. So this particular oxygen which is secreted from the posterior lobe of the posterior part of the this pituitary gland, it is going to stimulate or causes a strong uterine contraction during the parturition process, right? This is the correct one. So these are the few questions which were asked from the pituitary, so parturition as well as from the lactation process, right? And next in the next session, we'll meet in the next session. Till next session, have a great day.